All right, good evening, everyone. So sorry that we're starting late. We're just a bit behind schedule. We just had to sort some technical things out. So do us a favor and please share this stream. I want you to share this stream as much as you can. Let's share the stream. Well, I'm about to start. Oh boy. Okay. Can we share the stream? And please let's comment on this live stream. Thank you. And if you can share the stream on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it on WhatsApp. Then also you can put it on all OECare groups so that people know that we are live. I'll just give you some time to join in. Give it some time to join in. All right, let's go. All right, okay. Okay. Good evening, Esther. Good evening, Sheyi. Good evening, Tejumola. Good evening, Valerie. Good evening, Timilolua. All right, as soon as you join, please just leave us a comment, like the stream, and help share the stream on Twitter, on Facebook. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Good evening, Oni. Indamola Mustafa. Good evening. Okay, I believe we can start in the next 1 or 2 minutes. Can start in the next one. Good evening, Ayomide. So let's share, let's like the stream and let us share it. Good evening, Pastor Dami. Good evening, Tomiwa. Good evening, Obi, Dickness Obi Ogechi. Good evening, Duraku, Chidiebere. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, I think we can start now. All right. Let's get as much people as to join us as we start. Now, porn addiction and how to break from it. Now, I want to first of all state that the issue of porn must first of all remove the shame and the guilt and all of that surrounds porn addiction and porn consumption. We have to understand what it is because many times, because of the shame associated with porn, most people are not able to honestly talk about their challenges with it. So there's a lot of stigma associated with it. So a lot of people will rather try to overcome in private, you understand, rather than open up to somebody and say, hey, I have this problem, or it is really a problem, because they don't want to deal with the stigma that that comes with it. And it's one of the most difficult things to actually, one of the most difficult addictions to actually break. And I will explain it to you. I will explain how the addiction works. I will also explain how it affects your brain. Then I also explain what you need to do, all right, to break free. The first thing to note about porn addiction is that when we are talking about porn addiction, we are not talking about a moral issue. We are actually talking about a behavioral issue. All right. Porn addiction is not a moral issue. It's not a morality issue. It's a behavioral issue. Pornography itself is a moral issue. But when we are talking about the addiction to it, that is a behavioral, all right, a behavioral issue. Okay. Now, first thing you need to note is this. The porn industry is one of the biggest, largest, industries in the whole wide world. Okay. It is one of the largest industry even by revenue. Okay. There are a lot of billion-dollar companies, all right, that are centered on porn. If you look at Netflix even uses the neurological, physiology, all right, of the human brain to determine the kind of content that they put on their website. If you look at Netflix, you find out that there are a lot of movies, movies that have sexual content in them. And they've graded the sexual content in such a way that if somebody were an addict to pornography viewing, all right, the person will be hooked on that series. There are many series like that. It is designed to feed the habit because they've been able to create a system that ensures that they are able to profit from porn addiction. You understand? They're able to profit from porn addiction. But you see, there's a lot of damage this addiction does, all right, to the brains of people who are exposed to it. And I will explain it to you. Now, why do people view porn? Why is it that people cannot break free from porn? Why does it look like such a struggle, so difficult for people to break through? The answer lies in the neurochemistry of your brain. So here is how your brain is. Your brain, all right, is divided into two parts. You have the rational aspect, the rational part of your brain. Well, that's the frontal cortex. The rational part of your brain is the one where, it's part of the brain that is responsible for, logical decisions. You understand? Rational decisions. You get. So, for example, if you are married and you want to kiss your husband, okay, the rational part of your brain will say, maybe we should not kiss outside on the road. You understand? All right. You have the impulse to kiss your husband, but you control yourself because your frontal cortex is working. You understand? But there's another part of your brain. All right. It's the irrational aspect part of your brain. Neurophysiology, we call it your lower brain. All right, or your evolving brain. That is the part that is in charge of instincts, of cravings, desires. You understand? Your base desires, base instincts. That is what's that controls. That's where what's called the limbic system. You understand? So you find that your brain has these two parts: the frontal, which is the rational, and the limbic, which is not, you understand, rational, all right, but is given to pleasure. The balance in your brain, or the balance that should be present in your brain, is that you have desires from the limbic system that is now moderated by your frontal cortex, or the rational aspect side of your brain. So, for example, let's say you desire to eat chocolate. Okay, your limbic system will want to continue eating chocolate as much as possible, eat chocolate until your stomach is full of chocolate. But you see, your rational, or the rational side of your brain will say, no, one bar is enough. If you start taking more than one bar, that becomes something. You understand? So when you have impulse control, what it means is that your frontal cortex is functioning properly, your reward system is functioning properly. Now let me tell you something else about your brain. There's a part of there's a neurochemical in your brain that is in charge of motivation, drive. All right, that drive you have, to take ice cream, that drive you have, all right, to eat a particular meal, that drive you have to achieve, okay, at work, that drive you have to achieve in school. You want to get an A, all right, you want to achieve it and you push yourself to achieve it. That drive, all right, is actually, engineered and programmed by a neurochemical called dopamine. Dopamine is the neurochemical for motivation. It is that, that neurochemical, that hormone in your brain that motivates you. It's like that gives you the fire to chase your dreams, to chase your goal, to hit a target. That's what, dopamine does. Now, your brain thrives on dopamine releases, or dopaminergic releases. Your brain thrives on it. All right, because if you are able to go towards a particular goal and you're able to fulfill it, yes, your brain has this feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of highness, that it experiences from, that cycle. So for example, you find that cocaine, which is one of the greatest stimulants for dopamine, is actually called dope. The reason why it's called dope is because of the neurochemical in your brain that it actually causes to be released. Now, dopamine is not a bad neurochemical, but if dopamine is secreted in your brain in unusual amounts, all right, it becomes a problem for your brain, because when it becomes it's secreted in unusual amounts, your brain, because your brain loves dopamine, your brain will always be looking for that same high, that same concentration of dopamine to envelop your brain again. Now, there are certain activities that causes higher than usual, release of dopamine. One is hard drugs like amphetamines, cocaine, all of those things. That's why when people take hard drugs, you find out that they have this experience of highness. That highness is actually due to dopamine. All right, dopamine release in the brain. The brain is, swimming in a large volume of dopamine. And that high, your brain will always chase it, will always seek it. Okay? The next thing that causes there to be a massive release of dopamine is pornography addiction, pornography viewing. Okay? And the reason is because our brains were not designed to view the naked body, too many, naked bodies of the opposite sex, all right, in a short period of time. So before internet and technology, the normal man would just see one woman at a time, maybe sees, but he can only pay attention to one woman at a time. You understand? But with pornography use, you are viewing several sexual activities at the same time, moving from one screen to the other. So what now happens is there is a constant release of unusual amount of dopamine in your brain. And what that does, your reward center, there's a part of your brain called reward center. It's your pleasure center, such that once that dopamine release continues and there is a climax, maybe for example, most people when they watch porn, they have to now act out that what they are watching. So they masturbate, they touch themselves, and in the end, the climax and there is pleasure. So what now happens is when somebody watches porn, then after watching porn, continues and proceeds to masturbate, what now happens is your brain is now going to say, okay, I really enjoyed that, flooding of dopamine, which is the motivation hormone, and serotonin. All right, serotonin is, for pleasure. All right, it's an endorphin. Okay, all right. I really allowed that. I really enjoyed that large volume of dopamine. All right, in the brain, that high net I experienced, and I can see that for me to, have that experience. This is your brain. I need to watch porn and masturbate. Okay, so you now begin to find that from exposure to porn and masturbation, people will now begin to experience that they begin to have urges from time to time. They all of a sudden they just come, all right, and driving them to repeat that action. What is going on is the brain is saying, when a man has a urge or a woman has an urge to watch porn and masturbate, what is actually going on is the brain calling for dopamine. Not regular amount of dopamine. No. It's calling for the unusual amount of dopamine that only porn and other activities can actually stimulate. Listen, the person who is a porn addiction is not about sex. So that's one of the mistakes people make. They think that, because and the reason why I'm a porn addict is because I want to have sex and there's no sex to have. No, porn addiction is not about sex, because the amount of dopamine, the volume of dopamine released, all right, through porn viewership, sex with a regular woman cannot do it. It can't do it. It's not possible to do it. It's one of the reasons why research has shown, and even from interviewing, people who are married and are having porn addiction, even after sex, most people who have been exposed to porn a very long time don't really experience, the adequate satisfaction. They still need to watch porn to get there, because porn addiction is not about sex. It is about flooding the brain, flooding the reward center with dopamine higher than normal levels of dopamine. Very important to get it. So the moment you understand this, you get what's going on when you have urges, you get what is going on when you have cues. Okay, now let's talk about porn for a bit. All right, there are two types of porn content. You have the explicit content, hardcore content. Then you have the implicit content. The hardcore content is the one, just naked woman, they are having sex, is X-rated. That's explicit. Now, all right, you have that. But you also have the implicit content. The implicit content, if you view it, will land you in the explicit content. Okay? Now, what are implicit content? For example, implicit content is, okay, if you're a guy, maybe you're on Instagram and you're seeing a lady dancing seductively. That seductive dance, okay, will trigger a dopaminergic response from your brain. And that dopaminergic response that is triggered for your brain will now begin to drive you to the full action, which is the X-rated action. Because your brain is saying, hey, that image that image, all right, is something you should look at, because your brain is wired to feed on the sexual content. So the explicit content or the implicit content, all right, prepares you and activates that neural pathway, that porn pathway in your brain to seek X-rated content. This is why when you're talking about recovery from porn addiction, it's not just the X-rated content you have to cut off. You have to also cut off the implicit, sexually implicit, you understand, content, on Instagram, social media, or funny disease, or even sometimes some women do not understand if a guy has been, is a porn addict, and you don't understand the degree to which the brain of that person has been damaged, so that they don't understand that ordinary, maybe somebody wears a cloth and the cleavage is showing. That is enough to set off a trigger. Or someone wearing a body-fitting dress and there's a high slit, all of a sudden the brain is going somewhere else. The man's mind is going somewhere else because that shape reminds him, all right, of a X-rated video he has watched, and the brain recorded all those things. The brain does not forget. The brain has recorded all those things, and viewing the sexually implicit content, all right, is activating and awakening that neural pathway. And all of a sudden you have that guy, all right, either masturbating to that sexually implicit content, or it doesn't do it for him. He now goes to, sexually explicit content. Not just guys, there are women that are addicted to pornography too, right? So it goes both ways, all right? It's just that the statistics with men is higher than with women. So I need to understand this. This is a neurological issue. It's a neurological issue that is a behavioral issue. Now, let me also explain this. A lot of people need to understand why they are addicted to porn. Because for many, porn use is actually to moderate their mood. Okay? It's for mood moderation. If you have been addicted to porn for a very long time, you're going to find something out that if you check and you're being honest and you are aware about yourself, one of the things you are going to notice is that you are most likely going to fall, all right, feed on porn when the following are going on in your life. When you are stressed. Maybe you have had a hard day at work and you are very, very stressed. What normally happens when you are stressed is this. There is a high release of a hormone called cortisol. All right? And when you have a high release of cortisol into your system, okay, your body now begins to look for a means to distress. What can we use to take this edge off? And if you've been exposed to porn, all right, because what porn does is that it gives you a dopaminergic high. Then after it gives you a dopaminergic high, it now gives you a release that causes you to relax. Your brain will now recommend, okay, because stress is one of the trigger, all right, for your brain saying, hey, I need to get off. I need something to calm me down. All right. So a stressed state is one of the most important triggers for pornography use. Stress. Very important for you to notice. Stress is one of the reasons why, all right, if you begin to be mentored and all, one of the things they'll tell you is the moment you come back after a stress day, the first thing you should do is to go into a shower and take a cold bath. Take a cold, chilled bath. The moment that happens, all of a sudden the stress level in your body goes down. Do you understand? That's number one. Second thing that triggers, I told you many people use porn for mood regulation. The stressed person uses porn to modulate their mood. Okay? And the second reason, all right, the second trigger, second thing that you find, all right, when people, people that are addicted to porn is boredom. 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 When you get to that state where you don't know what to do. So when you get to that state where you don't know what to do or you don't have anything to do, you understand, all right, and you are in a non-excited state, what your brain, your porn brain does is that it recommends an excited activity that causes you to experience a high. Okay? So an idle, non-active person who has nothing they are doing and is addicted to porn is more likely to feed on that habit. Because boredom simply means, in neurological terms, means activities, or the lack of motivation to carry out an activity. So that lack of motivation means dopamine is scarce in your brain. So your brain now begins to say, well, it seems like you don't know what to do to generate dopamine and to be motivated. Well, I have an idea. There's something you have done before that release a large amount of dopamine. Guess what it does? It's to view porn and masturbate, so that it recommends that to you. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Third thing that increases the likelihood of porn, of the urge, is if you are experienced a traumatic situation. All right, a traumatic situation like a heartbreak. So, for example, you find somebody who, all right, maybe started using porn from very young, they now got into a relationship, and the frequency of use reduced. If they love that person they were in a relationship with, and they should experience a heartbreak, they would. One of the major things that was going to happen is their porn addiction is going to skyrocket. The reason is because they are going to be using the dopamine release that comes from porn viewership to medicate their brain. So they use that release, the neurochemical release, to medicate their brain to deal with the heartbreak. So there's a psychological aspect to porn addiction. It's a neurological thing. This is something I want you to first of all understand. All right, there is an explanation for your behavior. All right, if there is an addiction here, there's an explanation for it. You understand? So that's one major thing I want you to know. And there's something I need everyone to realize in this, that the dangers of porn use is that if you expose your brain for prolonged periods of porn use, it's going to affect every single area of your life. It will affect your spiritual life. It will affect your financial life. It will affect your career. Do you know why? Because the more you view porn and masturbate and get pleasure from that, what happens is dopamine is supposed to be released, all right, towards, achievements. So, for example, a goal is set in front of you, and they are told, okay, if you achieve so and so numbers, you will get a promotion. So, dopamine begins to be released in that you are motivated, all right, by the things you are doing, the things you are doing, to get and hit that target, all right, such that when you hit that target, you now get a dopaminergic high. So dopaminergic highs are supposed to occur with the achievement of goals. You are not supposed to cheat. So, for example, in love relationship, you are supposed to chase the girl. All right? You're supposed to chase the girl. You're supposed to love her right. You're supposed to date her. Then after you date her, then you marry her. Then after you marry her, then you have sex. So the sex you have after that period of dating and knowing her is supposed to be the reward, right, for all the work before. So you experience the dopaminergic high on your wedding night for the activity, the target, because before your wedding night, marriage was the goal. Now you are married. You've hit that target. Now you now have a new target of loving this woman right, raising children with her, all right, giving her a good life. Those are new targets. What porn does is that it gives you a shortcut to that dopaminergic high, such that rather than use the motivation, or pursue dopamine to tie dopamine to the accomplishment of real projects in the real world. Rather than that happening, what happens is that you need a dopaminergic high. Why stretch yourself to achieving something, building a house, building a career, building a love relationship? Why don't just stay in front of a screen, masturbate, and you hit it? So what now happens is the guy or lady who is addicted to porn will always find out that they cannot complete any task, or they don't have enough motivation to complete tasks. They are always tired. They're always tired. The only thing, that's what happens when you give into porn. The only thing they can wake them up to do without stress, watch porn, masturbate. But give them a book, they can't finish it. Can't finish reading a book. They can't, they are in a hurry. It even, porn use actually alters your personality. You now begin to find out that you cannot listen to a conversation. You are always in a hurry to respond. Your mind, the refractory index of your mind has been altered. You understand? You cannot have proper relationship with the opposite sex. You can't have a friend of the opposite sex because you are viewing that friend through the lens of sex. So it now leads to poor interpersonal relationships. Because relationships now are now a means to give you a dopaminergic high. There are some porn addicts that actually what they do, you'll be surprised. Oh my God, you will be surprised. You will be surprised what porn addiction does. Because to a porn addict, if care is not taken, the image of people, women or men, are just objects. There are people that go to Instagram profiles and look for women that dress sexy and dance sexy and they masturbate to it in private. That's what they use the videos to get highs. Now, if they meet that lady in real life, they are not able to properly relate with that lady. If they marry that lady whose picture they were masturbating to, they will not even be able to, if they have proper sex with her, because the brain prefers the video to the real person. So prolonged exposure to pornography actually leads to erectile dysfunction in men. In women, it leads to the women not being easily satisfied with real, you understand, with real human beings. That's why you're finding that there's a proliferation of sex toys. All those sexual toys. Oh, these toys, that toy, stuff like that and stuff like that, because the women are hypersexualized. So the man and normal sexual behavior and sexual activity is no longer enough. It's no longer enough. They need machine. That is what porn use does. Because until there is that level of activity, the brain is not satisfied. The brain needs that high concentration of dopamine, you understand, to say, okay, yes, I'm good. So what do you need to do? How do you break these things? How do you, if you're being involved in pornography, how do you break it? You understand? The first thing you need to do is this. We need to unwire your brain, rewire your brain, then hardwire your brain. Let me say it again. How do you break porn addiction? You need to unwire your brain, then rewire your brain, then hardwire your brain. Every single action that you do, that you repeat, is tied to a neural pathway, all right, in your brain. A neural pathway is a program in your brain, all right, that repeats. So you now find out that if that neural pathway exists, okay, that activity will be easily done, all right, consciously or subconsciously. That's what learning is. It's a neural pathways are evidence that that action, that behavior has been learned and concretized in your brain. So the first thing to do to break porn addiction, all right, addictive behavior, is that first you need to get to a point where you see that established neural pathway that says, I'm stressed, watch porn, masturbate. I am tired, watch porn, masturbate. I am bored, watch porn, masturbate. I have a broken heart, watch porn, masturbate. I'm in a bad mood, watch porn, masturbate. You see, and I have the cue, I have an urge, go ahead, give yourself into it. You see, that program, that neural pathway, it needs to be disused. So the more that activity is not carried out from begin to end, that cycle, the more that cycle doesn't complete, the weaker the pathway, that program gets in your brain. The weaker it gets in your brain. So what now has to happen is that we now have to replace that neural pathway with another one. You behave your way out of any habits you behave your way into. So when you watch porn, what your brain is basically looking for is that your brain is actually looking for a dopaminergic response. So what you now have to do is that you need to replace porn viewership and masturbation with another activity that actually releases dopamine, all right, and is able to satiate your brain. You understand, and say, oh yes, we are good. That's what actually needs to happen. So let me explain how we can do this. Then I'll share my own personal story, all right, so that you understand that this is something by the grace of God that has helped me with, and I want to help as many people, with it. And the truth about it is this: if you are prophetic, if you're given to the prophetic, one of the things that the devil will attack you with right from when you are a child is this thing. Is what he does. Right? Is what he does. Lust is one of the things Satan uses, all right, to put a Goliath in the life of prophetic people. Because if he can put it in the life of a prophetic person, no matter how used by God that person is, Satan can just press a button, all right, bring that person into a scenario. And because that person has a program in them, okay, it can trigger a fall and discredit that person and that person's ministry. So you have to be, it's something you have to watch, very watchful. So what do you do? Okay, in terms of this, first of all, the first thing to do is to understand your body and understand your triggers and your cues as a person. What triggers you and what your cues. First, what made you start watching porn? Was it when you were an adolescent? Did you watch it when you were a child? Did you walk into people having sex? What exactly was? So you have to trace it. How did this thing start? You understand? Then you need to now check and do a diagnosis of yourself and say, okay, when are the times when I'm usually triggered to do this thing, to engage in this activity? Is it in the morning when I wake up, or is it at night? Okay, or is it during the day? What exactly is it? Then exactly what exactly sets this off? There are some people that what actually sets it off is that they are watching, explicit content. Sometimes some people, what sets it off is that they are following certain accounts. All right, and once they scroll through the person's timeline, they see this thing, it triggers them. So what you need to now do, because we are talking about first on wire, what you need to now do is to close every single source of trigger. Porn triggers, you need to close every single source. That's number one. You can't be talking about beating, you understand, the habits when you are still having constant exposure to digital content that is sexually explicit or sexually implicit. It means identify the social media accounts where a lady will just come and shaking bum bum. You don't want to see that by accident. block that this thing, unfollow, restrict, identify, block, 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 block. Then you go on Twitter. Ensure you have put block on X-rated, accounts. Then also you put mute certain words such that certain things can't come into your timeline. So that if you are going to be on social media, it is safe for you to view. The other thing you can do if you are married. If you are married and you have porn addiction and you are doing porn, please tell your spouse. Open up to them. I'm telling you, tell them. Let them know. It is very, very important. And I'm going to talk about how your spouse will help. You understand? All right, in that, if you're married. Okay? So, block the sources. Now, not just videos or pictures. There are some folks that narrate X-rated content. Block those people. You have to be merciless in blocking people and sources of triggers. Merciless. This is not how they feel. It doesn't matter how they feel. Merciless. If it's a woman of God that dresses seductively, it doesn't block the person. Are you following? Block every source of those things. That's the first thing you need to do. The second thing you have to check is, like I said, check yourself. In the first week, maybe you watched porn yesterday or you masturbate yesterday and you say, I don't want to. Listen, let me mention, it takes at least 90 days of complete abstinence for you to actually rewire your brain. I said unwire, rewire. So it takes about 90 days of abstinence of not watching porn or masturbating to unwire and rewire your brain. But to hardwire takes at least 2 years. 2 to 3 years. Okay? I just wanted to say that. So in that first week, all right, after, all right, you've plugged out this thing and stuff like that. First week or first month, check this thing. When do you feel the urge most to masturbate? Is it in the morning? To watch porn, is it in the morning? Is it in the evening? So what you do is that you change your behavior. So maybe in the morning, all right, you used to find a place, maybe there's a room that you have access to that you're alone, and you always shut the door. Don't go to that room in the morning then. Maybe it is usually at night by 12:30 where you are watching Netflix. You now have the idea to check one video as explicit scene. Your brain is the one that triggers it. What you now do is this: for the next 1 month, you sleep early. Oh yeah. You change your behavior. You change your rhythm. First 1 month, you sleep early. All right? You sleep early. You don't sleep. If you are watching anything by 12:30, you make sure you watch it with somebody. That's in the early days. You sleep early. You normally used to lock your door. You leave your door open. Don't lock your doors anymore. Are you following what I'm saying? These are steps you take in the early periods. Then what do you do in terms of replacement activity? Well, what activities stimulate dopamine? One of the things that always happens with people who are addicted to porn is that most times they stay alone. They will stay inside, they will be by themselves. You understand? If it's a husband, he will say he's working, but he has locked himself inside a room. Replace that activity by being where your spouse is. Stay there. Both of you are working, be in the same, let your body be in contact with each other. It's not particular, it's not sexual. It's just that you are there, discuss, talk with each other. Intimacy via fellowship, communication is a major source of dopaminergic release. Do you understand? Because talking to your spouse and all that, because talking to your spouse, all right, releases dopamine, it releases endorphins, then most importantly, it releases oxytocin. That's the endearment hormone. Now, these hormones are also released in porn use. So you find that somebody who has porn addiction, the spouse will just notice that there's no connection, or the connection is weak. They can't explain it. Why? It doesn't that because that endearment, all right, that energy is diverted somewhere else. So what you need to do is take that energy from the screen, give it to your wife or give it to your husband. Talk to them, be around them, play with your children. Don't stay away. Spend hours, invest hours in being with people, with family, interact. Very, very important. Other activities you can do is give yourself a task, all right, to accomplish. And come here, you can say, okay, I'm going to pray for 1 hour. Pray, fulfill that task. right? Right? That is, you have the motivation, is spiritual, or you give yourself, I'm going to read this book in 1 week, or I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to go to the gym every single day and exercise. Give yourself that task and you see it through. Those are the activities you replace with it. Or you give that energy to say, I'm going to accomplish this in my business. I'm going to build my business, or I'm going to take this course and conclude it. What are you doing? You are directing that motivation to other activities, letting your brain derive satisfaction from you beginning a task and completing it. You are motivated to begin and complete and conclude a particular task. That's how it works. So the moment you have that, so instead of masturbating, you are reading. Instead of masturbating, you're exercising. Instead of watching porn, you're with your spouse, or talking with your girlfriend, or talking with your friends, or fellowshipping your dad and your mom. You understand? Instead of watching this, you've gone out for a run, all right, to exercise. Those things release dopaminergic releases. You understand? Instead of doing that, you're praying, you're reading your Bible, okay, all right. Now, let me say something very importantly, and I want you to get this, please. Or you can leave your comments in the comment section. And if you have questions, you can start dropping it so that when I'm done, I will just take the question. I just have a few more minutes to be done with this. I just want to take time so that this video is up and people can come to it and time again. Now, church and religious houses have not really helped where porn is concerned because they've not understood it. So many times when you're talking about porn, and you look at it from many religious platforms, churches and all, there's usually this stigma that comes with it. They stigmatize it. Then by the time they are done, they make you feel bad for it. Then another thing that happens with churches is that they make it spiritual. So they make it as though there's a demon. So most times they are talking about, they want to cast out the demon of pornography. Okay? And because it's an addiction, they think it's a demon. Now, I'm not ruling out that some cases where demons are involved, but the truth about it is that porn addiction, even when it is compulsive, is neurological. There could be a demon in some cases, but it's neurological. It's perfectly explainable. So you now have sometimes where they will say, oh, to break it, go on 7 days prayer and fasting. Well, what happens is that when you give somebody who's a born addict and you say you got to do 7 days prayer and fasting, and he doesn't eat for 7 days, of course, most likely he won't view porn. But after he has done 7 days fasting, you have not taught him how to live and build neural pathways when he's not fasting. So basically, you are telling the brain that the way to cope with this thing is to not eat and punish yourself. Whereas after the fast, is he going to fast forever? No. So most times, fasting, stay without food and all those things without renewing the mind, rewiring and rewiring, actually makes it worse. Makes it worse. Okay? So identify new activities that will give you the dopamine, all right, and relationships, books to read, small tasks for you to set a goal and achieve those goals. You understand? You can give yourself to evangelism, all right, I'm going to win this number of souls, and you hit that target. If you're a pastor and you are given to porn addiction, you are going to find out that, okay, you will not be able to make impact because you will experience a lack of motivation to reach certain things. Why? Because your motivation is being drained by this activity. It will affect Bible study. Because motivation, you don't have infinite motivation. Motivation is finite. It will affect Bible study. It will affect, if you're married, it will affect intimacy with you. Because the motivation that should go to other things is going to one thing. Are you seeing what I'm saying? So we unwire by, first of all, changing your behavior. All right, you create a new behavior. You understand? You create a new behavior. Then you cut off sources of those impulse. Anyone that push those things into your listening, you cut off. You may cancel your Netflix subscription if you need to for a while. Just cancel it. All right? Okay, you cancel it. Social media, I won't say you should run away from social media. I will just tell you to identify where those things come from. For example, by the grace of God, I have so dealt with my social media, Google, every single thing. For example, Google, you can cancel such that you won't be able to see explicit content. Twitter, you can do the same thing. Facebook, you can do the same. Instagram, you can do the same thing. And please, don't go to Instagram search and be scrolling down. You will see things you're not supposed to see. You understand? You put those checks in place because your body is not designed to handle that much data. No, your brain will crash and you will need something to, to moderate it. So you unwire, you rewire. Now, hardwire is when the new behavioral pattern that is anti-porn is concretized into your brain. It's now the new operating system. Okay? Now, last thing, one of the things I will just tell you that also helps is this. You need a voice, a deterrent. There should be constant reminding of your brain, of yourself, the dangers of that behavior, so that it constantly strengthens that neural pathway that you are trying to build and say, no, we're not going to do it because this is dangerous. You understand? Dangerous. So you continually, listen to material that lets you know this thing is dangerous. I shouldn't be doing this thing. You can, as you listen to it, like I recommend listening to certain, videos. You can watch this video every day. There are some psychologists on YouTube also. I can recommend them. All right, that every day you can just listen to them. Why porn use is bad. Listen to them, get that information, because those things will program your mind to say, no, why we watch porn is bad for me. Why would I do it? It's bad for me. The same way you say cigarette causes cancer, so also you say porn it's going to cause erectile dysfunction. It's going to destroy my marriage. It's going to do this. You strengthen that deterrent in your brain. Some people say, oh, porn helps to spice marriage. Auntie, if you bring porn to your marriage, I can promise you, your husband is not you that is making him enjoy that sex. It's not him. It's not you. I'm telling you, it's not you. It's not you. Don't bring those things into your life. It's not you. Okay? I think I'll stop here. Do we have any questions? Any questions? We have one question. I want to get more questions. I want to take as many questions as possible. Please ask your questions. Ask your questions. There's no shame there. Just ask your questions. Okay? Ask your questions. Okay, if you do want, one-on-one help, or I can help with that to counsel, because I do that with some people who have said, oh, Pastor, I have this addiction and I want you to work with me concerning this. All right. Although what I do is to be sure that you are serious. All right. You would take a small, I'll take a small sign-up fee if you are serious. So show that you are serious, so you don't waste my time. All right. And what it will involve is we'll track you. All right. Tell you, track you, give you a plan. Okay, do this, do this, do this. Then I'll make sure follow up, do this, do this. I'm not going to obviously use it against you and all that. Now let me tell you my story so that it's out there. I got exposed to porn when I was very young, and it was very accidental. You see, I love to read, and my desire to read has been since I was very young. So when I was 12 years old or something like that, I was going from GS1, GS2, I think, yeah. Yeah, I think that GS1, GS2. So we're on this GS1 break. This after third term break before GS2 starts. So I was borrowing books from my neighbors, everybody. So I borrowed some new general mass GS2, and all that and something. But in one time when I got to book from one of my neighbors, they had this soft cell magazine. Listen, up until that time, I didn't know what sex was. Nothing. If this is, how was this? 97. Is it 97? Yeah, 96, 97. We didn't even have TV. We were off. There was no lights at home. They were cutting our light then bringing it, cutting our light because we were owing NEPA rent and NEPA this and stuff like that. But we had this software where they drew sex and all those things. It was explicit, but I didn't know what I was reading. If I did, I would have dropped it. Oh my God, I read that thing through and a stronghold developed in my mind. Next thing I knew, at 12, 13, I was reading James Hadley Chake's novel. The masturbation entered. Then when I had access to internet, it went to watching internet. And it became a serious stronghold in my mind. Serious stronghold in my mind. I was doing ministry, but I was addicted to this thing that entered when I was young. That's usually when Satan brings it in. Young. But thank God, free now by the grace of God. All right. But one of the things that I helped is that I had a lot help me break free was it showed me how, so I can teach people this is how. You understand? Showed me how, because it is going to seriously limit you. Seriously limit you. Don't joke with it. It will seriously limit you. Seriously limit you. To seriously mean to as it is. So you have to understand, don't joke with it, and you can actually recover your brain. There's a porn brain, that's the brain that is constantly exposed to porn. Your brain can heal because there's a wound, there's an injury in the chemistry of the brain that is totally inundated with porn exposure. It's affect your brain. It's plastic brain, so you need to heal, and that healing takes time. Do you understand? You now begin to find out you are now enjoying life on a different level. Your motivation is high. All right. You are now looking for friendships, relationships. You are now having depth with your love partner, your wife, or the person you are dating. You now find out that you are now more interested in their life. You are now a better human being to them, because your motivation now is in getting more intimate, having depth with them. Your motivation is now getting the best out of work, getting the best out of business. All right. You are not looking for a cheap shortcut, which are what porn actually gives to you. All right. Okay. Let's look at the questions. All right. I'm ready for more questions. So, how many questions do we have? We have two. So the first question is, can this same principle of unwiring, rewiring, and hardwiring be applied to other kinds of addiction, or is this similar to pornography? You see a person who's addicted to cigar. Yes, yeah. So it's the same thing. Okay, it's just that I won't lie to you. The dopaminergic high gotten from porn is higher than cigar. All right, cigar use. And the truth about it is that the person who is using cigarette is actually trying to do the same thing as the person using pornography. They are medicating their brain, because nicotine inhalation causes the release of dopamine and gives the person a high, and that high brings about a relaxation. All right, they go high, then it brings them low. They are calm, they are relaxed, it's a medication. It's a medication. So the very same things I have highlighted is actually what is used for people who are nicotine addicts, smokers. So one of the things they do is that they will provide, if you go for all these recovery clinics and all that, one of the things they will do is that they will actually provide an alternative. They will give them a nicotine patch. So some of them, they'll give a nicotine patch. And what that nicotine patch does is, when the brain is looking for dopamine, what it does is it just shoots nicotine into the system. You understand? And the brain gets what it would have gotten from the person smoking. The reason why they give nicotine patch is because it's not only nicotine that is in cigarettes. There are other chemicals in there that causes cancer of the lungs and cancer of different parts of the body. So what they've done is they've given the nicotine, which is the major thing driving the dopaminergic release, and ensuring that the person is not inhaling those chemical compounds that can cause cancer. The same principle with opioid addiction, where they will actually say, okay, if you're addicted to heroin and all, they will now say, okay, they will give you something else. So they have to create another neural pathway. So they will give methadone. So it's that same physiological principle that guides, you understand, that guides the recovery. Okay, now, next question says, is there a correlation between the use of sex toys and pornography? Yes, there is. There is. Most times, you're going to find out that That person who is talking about sex toys, go and check. They have history of pornography exposure. So the lady that is looking for sex toys, she most likely started watching porn and touching herself, right? So it started from there. But touching herself did not provide satisfaction because from what she's watching all these exaggerated genitalia on screen. So in the mind, because the way porn production is wired, and even Netflix is wired, is that they keep increasing the intensity of the sexual stuff and the violence associated with it. Because the more explicit it is, the more there is a dopaminergic release in your brain, the more addicted you will be. Do you understand? So don't think these guys are joking. No, they are not joking. They know what they are doing. They are not. They want to make money, and they are employing neurophysiology in the series. How they do it, how they shoot it. They will bring it to drive you, make you addicted. So the person that is buying vibrator, buying big normal penis with that has battery and vibrator and all that stuff, what they are trying to do is they are chasing what they saw. It's a craving that is driven by hyperstimuli, the exposure to an hypersexualized content. So the hunger is for hypersexual content, not regular sexual content. Do you understand? Not regular sexual content. So until the lady is now saying until she loses her head and she's not satisfied. It was what she watched. There's a link. And that's why you look at all those content, you see all the marketing, I'm not looking at it. We are marketing dysfunction. It's dysfunction we are marketing. And it's sad. So you have some marriages where the woman is saying, it's not satisfying me in bed. But you are actually, there's a sexual dysfunction. It's not normal sexual behavior. Okay. Now, next question is this. It says, will you advise someone who's addicted to marry or sort before getting married? No, I don't think you would tell someone that the person has porn addiction and say the person should not marry. I think what you should do is, it's like saying someone has porn addiction is like having diabetes. It's a medical condition. Do you understand? It's like having malaria. It's treatable. So you don't need to put other things around it, because what is important is that person disclosing that they have it. You understand? And disclosing that they are trying to get help for it. You understand? Okay? Because if you say, what do you call it? If you say until you sort porn addiction before you marry, many people are not going to marry it. You understand? And porn addiction, all right, you don't get, how will I put it? You don't get cured of it. You have to be watchful till the end of your life. You are watchful. It's not like, no, I mean, watchful till the end of your life. All right. Is it okay for two people who are addicted to porn, who are also in a dating relation, to go into marriage while dealing with it, or they should deal with it no matter how long before they tie it not? Like I said, if both of them are, they just need, first, they need to have therapy. They need to be, they need help. You get, because in that kind of scenario where two people are addicted to porn, let me tell you what's going to happen. They will have unrealistic expectation of sex. They will want to explore until they now begin to go out there, in terms of, it's going to be, it's going to be a continuous chase of adrenergic, it is sympathetic without stop. You understand? You get? And there's a part I didn't even talk about in porn addiction that I should talk about. One of the things, there's something called the Coolidge effect in neurology. The Coolidge effect. These are the Coolidge effect works. So, when you meet, so in real life, you have just one person you are relating with. But with the Coolidge effect, if you constantly are exposed to this one person sexually, okay, at some point you go, I'm bored. I want something else. Okay? That's what Coolidge effect says. So they did this experiment in rats where um, they will bring a male rat and put bring rat in a cage. Then when they bring a female rat and they put electrodes to that male rat's brain. So they were measuring the dopaminergic response. So when they brought in the first female rat, the male rat was excited and they will have sex, access. That time, the male rat was not going near the female rat again. Then they took that female rat out. Then they brought a new female rat, and he was excited again. And the one said, and they took that one out. And last I was going, that was going. So with each new partner, the excitement was going on. So what Coolidge effect tells us is that if a person views porn, because with porn you can watch this scene, this one, this scene, different women in a short time frame, the Coolidge effect will set in because when you are now with your spouse, because it's just them, you get tired. They are beautiful, but they won't look beautiful to you. Sometimes you have some people wonder and say, how is this man cheating on this beautiful woman? It's Coolidge effect. This is what I just explained. Porn use exacerbates it. That's what it does. So what I would advise both parties, get help. Get help. Part of the things help you get during the dating period is that help. Then again, wisely. If both of you are watching porn, there's a high level likelihood that there's sex before marriage. You don't want to, the worst thing you want to do is to put fornication inside porn addiction. It is an explosive combo. The decisions will not make sense. You understand? It is just not the right. There's no wisdom inside of it. Just seek help. Okay? Now, next, is counting days of abstinence from addiction okay? Or is it a mental countdown? Oh no, it is good to count days. The reason why you need to count days is that it's good for you to show that because it is an achievement. Remember what we've said, that porn addiction is actually a dopaminergic issue. So it's about motivation. And motivation works with goals, targets to hit. So if you are able to hit a target, it actually strengthens your position against that addiction. So it's good to target and say, oh, I'm this, but please don't be putting it out in public. Oh, I'm 90 days porn free. You don't need to do that. It's for yourself. Because when you put it out in public, okay, you now begin to put yourself under unnecessary pressure. All right. And remember, stress is a trigger for porn use. Now, is it possible to replace porn addiction with intimacy with your wife if it creates Oh, of course, yes. That's what I've explained. You can replace porn addiction with intimacy with your wife. Oh, that is what will happen. And I can tell you something. If you are currently addicted to porn and having sex with your wife, take porn out. The sex with your wife will be more explosive. And your wife will notice that you are pushing towards intimacy. See, women can notice when you are with them, but something is off. They can. And that's what porn does. They'll just know that you are there, but you are not listening. Because your motivation to listen, to connect, is not there. It is being occupied and taken by something else. You understand? Yes. Okay, I think these are all the questions. Do we have any other questions? I think it's all. So do me a favor, guys. If you really learned anything from this, shoot me a tweet on social media, on Twitter. Then help me share this live stream so that people can watch it and get help. From time to time, we'll be doing videos on this to see how we can, help and provide more information and all that so that we can help. I think that certain issues like this, we should not hide it in Christendom and just people are battling it in secret. You understand? All right. Then also, if you want me to work with you on your recovery, all right, and you want to work with me, say I want to work with you and you to come on this journey with me to break free from this thing, no problem. Send me a DM on Twitter, send me a message on WhatsApp. All right. We will see how we can work something out. And for you to be motivated to adhere, you will be charged a small fee so that because we're working on motivation here. So I want to make sure your motivation is right. All right. But it doesn't have to be. You can find any other person you are comfortable working with, okay, to get the needed help that you need. Now listen to me. Do not allow porn control you. Take back your mind and use it as you should. Bye bye. God bless you.